The Shadow Maiden of Murakumo marks her return for Standard with these awesome new cards.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey card fighters, welcome back to another card review on the channel, and today we're gonna look at Shiryuki and her two support cards that were revealed last week. I promised yesterday when we covered the Schwarzschild cards that I was going to cover her once again, even though I'm a little bit late, but they are still some interesting cards that I want to go over and showcase some nice little interactions and my opinion on the cards, as seen as this is really some interesting new concept we're getting to Standard. What has also been seen with Schwarzschild as these new dynamic interaction between the opponent and you yourself as a player. So without further ado, let's just jump right into these cards as we have enough stuff to talk about. First off, we have the Grade 1, and that's Stealth Fiend Rainy Madame. And her skill is Auto and Rigid Circle. When your unit's attack doesn't hit, cost, put this unit into your soul and return a Fantasy Petal Storm Shiryuki from your drop zone to your hand. So this is a new interesting thing that we have seen in the past with the GR with Shadow Stitch and all, but this is new for Standard that we get these do not hit effects. And we have been waiting for this for quite some time, as it's quite typical for Murakumo to have these kinds of effects. And now we finally get them, and they are incorporated with Shiryuki at the same time. So this is a little bit interesting how it works. And this one basically states when a attack of your unit, so it doesn't have to be the one that this is boosting or this one itself is, it's just when a attack doesn't hit, you can then put this unit in your soul and get a Shiryuki to hand. And the reason why we're getting Shiryukis back to hand from drop zone is that we're going to use them to guard or place them on the field, and we can put them into the drop zone with our grade 2. So this one gives us a new cycle mechanic to get this one back to the hand each time that the attack doesn't hit. And most of these effects are going to be more important later on in the game when their opponents are sitting at 4 or 5 damage, as seen as they probably are going to take these damage early on, as they don't want to give you any advantage when they can. But that's also the good part about the does not hit effect. Your opponent usually wants to let them go through, so they're going to get to 5 or 6 damage a lot faster. And in something like Murakumo, it's an Axel deck, this is perfect. This is actually perfect to have. Because also in the early game, when you call this thing and they get a defensive trigger, well, then it's even perfect. Then you don't know that the does not hit effect is going to go off. So they getting a defensive trigger might also result in something negative for them in some regard. So there's some more to think about when you're facing against a player that's using these does not hit effects. Alright, next up we've got the grade 2, and that's Stealth Fiend Jakutsu Girl. And her skill is Auto and Rigid Circle. When its attack does not hit, look at the 7 cards from the top of your deck, reveal up to 2 Fantasy Petal Storm Shiryuki from among them, put them into your hand, put a card into your drop zone, shuffle your deck, and if you could not reveal, soul charge 1. If there's only 1 card revealed, put it into your hand. So what this card does is when it doesn't hit, and in this case it's specifically this unit only, you can check the top 7, and if you see 2 Shiryukis, you can put 1 in your hand and 1 in the drop zone. And if you only see 1, then you can only put it in your hand. You don't have to discard the other cards. You cannot discard anything. And if there's nothing, you can soul charge 1. And all these outcomes are great. If you get 2, well, you put 1 in the drop zone, and then you can get that 1 in the drop zone back with the grade 1, as seen as this, when this skill triggers, you did not hit, so also the grade 1 triggers, and you can get that Shiryuki that you put in the drop zone immediately back to hand. So you +2. Also, when you only see 1, you +1. That's also great. And if you didn't see any, so mainly when you probably already have seen all your Shiryukis, you either have them in their hand or they're already in the drop zone, you'll soul charge 1. And that soul charge is very important with the Shiryuki herself, as seen as she's gonna use that soul. So this, you already can see the nice little interaction between the grade 2 and the grade 1. But the interactions doesn't stop there, as it only gets better when we get to Shiryuki herself, so let's do that right now. To the grade 3, and it is Fantasy Storm Petal Shiryuki, of course. And she has 2 skills, and the first one is Auto on Vanguard Circle, Rearguard Circle, and Guardian Circle. When placed, cost Soul Blast 2, so here's the soul one I was referring to. Choose 3 units in your opponent's front row, and they get power minus 5k until the end of turn. If this unit is on your Vanguard Circle or Guardian Circle, they get minus 10 instead of the minus 5k. And this is really big, as you can put this unit on the Vanguard Circle multiple times and your opponent goes minus 5k or 10k. But if you ride it, you can put them to minus 10k and you choose 3. So against a Forest Clan, that's basically their entire front row, or against Protect. Against Exo, you can choose specific units that you want to eliminate to make it easier for yourself. But actually, that's not the power of this card. It's in the Guardian Circle, as seen, it's the defensive part of this card. As you can just put it on the Guardian Circle, and you can choose 3 units that goes minus 10k. And against Force and Protect, that can be a lot, as seen as that's all their attacks is going to be down with 10k. So you eliminate basically 3 Force markers. And against Axel, it can be even more detrimental, as you can eliminate 3 Axel markers, but in most cases they don't have 3 Axel markers. You're gonna eliminate about 3 of their 4 attacks or 3 of their 5 attacks, as they can probably not hit you anymore, as minus 10k, as most just hitting 12 or 18 or 17, and that's below the 22 threshold they need to hit if they still want to hit you after the minus 10k. And also you can stack this in certain situations that you want to use more, as long as you have the soul for it. And now we can also see why getting all those Shiryukis to hand can be very impactful, as the more you have in hand and the more you can use it, the stronger this is. She also still has another skill, and her other skill is Auto on Vanguard Circle. When an attack does not hit, return a Fantasy Petalstorm Shiryuki from your drop zone to your hand. So she also has the does not hit effect, and this time you can put one from drop zone back to hand. So each time that your opponent is guarding this attack, you can get one back to hand and then either rewrite if you want more circles, but in most cases you're gonna call it once again to the Guardian Circle to minus 10k 3 units of their attacks and potentially survive till next turn. And it can keep cycling this and chaining grade 2 and the grade 1 together to, as I stated before, the interaction between those two to fetch these grade 3s to hand is really strong, as you can set up these plays quite easily. And this is a perfect engine that you can tag into something more aggressive, like maybe Mandala Lord or Zanbaku, but the only problem is that those decks rely on Soul Blasting a little bit too much to make this more viable. So we have to wait and see if we can see more stronger cards that we can combine with this one that doesn't really rely on Soul Blasting that much. But then again, these minus 10k and those do not hit effects are looking really neat with their own kind of little interactions, as there are many things that you can do to annoy your opponent, and there are a lot of things to take in consideration when playing this deck. And I think it's currently a good engine to splash into any existing deck as so far to have a different kind of gameplay, but with the Soul Blast 2, it's still a little bit tricky in some regard, as seen as Zanbaku is going to use a lot of Soul Blast, and especially with the new support. And Mandala Lord also used a lot of Soul Blast to Superior Call a lot. So we have to wait and see how these cards are going to interact with the rest. But then again, if you think about it, if you combine the grade 2s with Shiryuki, if your opponent's sitting at 5 damage, and with all these do not hit effects, it's probably very easy to push them to 5 damage, otherwise you're gonna plus a lot. When they're at 5, and you call 2 of the grade 2s in the front row and attack with it, they are not gonna hit. So you can check the top 7 and get a Shiryuki to hand. But pretty fast in the game, you already drawn all your Shiryukis from deck. So at that point onward, you're gonna soul charge for every time that you do not hit. So if you have 2, you can soul charge 2 cards. So, and if they stay on the field every turn, you can basically cycle this indefinitely, that you get them to hand, call 1, use 1, Soul Blasting 2, minus 10k 3 units, and when they guard your Vanguard, if you're sitting at Shiryuki, they can use her skill to bounce that Shiryuki back to the hand. And basically, this can be a vicious cycle that can keep continuing and continue onward. So, in its own, it has a very dangerous loop that's going on if your opponent cannot get rid of it, and the game can stall very, very long. But as soon as you're an Axel deck, at some point they cannot keep up with your multi-attacking and they're gonna die. And as seen as it doesn't use a lot of counterblast, you can tag in the grade 1 and the grade 2 that search themselves out. So couple that with the grade 2 that filters your deck, and then the grade 1 and the grade 2s, Shiryuki on its own can look like an amazing deck filtering deck that can stall and annoy your opponent with a lot of power reduction. So it's looking very nice, and on first glance, even in this video I stated that it might only be an engine that's splashing that needs a little bit of support, but when you keep looking at it in more different kind of ways, you can see that this can be very destructive at some point. So I'm very hyped for these cards, and as stated before in the previous video yesterday with Schwarzschild, I'm looking forward to these more interactive kind of cards that are not only going to be used in your own turn, but also in your opponent's turn, where your opponent has to play around them, but still in a very interactive kind of way that isn't disruptive like luck, for example. So I'm very hyped for these new cards, and I cannot wait to see what other cards are going to be revealed and what other interactions. And if any of these sound really interesting to you, then why not subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button to be updated, as we're going to cover all these new cards in the upcoming 2 weeks as they are going to be revealed by Bushiroad, and see how they might impact their deck and the upcoming meta and whatnot, as we're gonna do all that in this channel. So stay tuned for that. And as always, guys, I'm Mr. Timeleaf, and I'll see you guys in the next one.